What's up, everybody? Happy Wednesday. I hope everybody's doing good out there. Tune in for another class. If you guys haven't checked out the Bitcoin Weekly Dose, I did another recap on Monday. It's uploaded in the university section, so you guys can go check that out if you haven't already. And let me share my screen so we can dive right in. Boom. All right. Let's start off with mortgage rates. So as of right now, we're sitting on about 6.82% is about the national average. If you take a look kind of over the last 5 years, you see we're up. And then if we look out to the past 10 years, we're up. But if we go all time, we'll see how far back we go. So if we go back all time, this only has data from back to 99. But as you can see, when we were in the 90s, we were kind of around this range. And even previously before that, we were also around this range. So anyone who happened to get a mortgage pretty much around, we'll say, once we started dipping in the fours, so about this June, about summertime of 2010, really all the way up until about summertime of 2022. So really anyone who got a mortgage in this range pretty much either got lucky, or if people were waiting for a dip, then obviously they got in on the right time. I happen to be one of these people that fell when we hit these super low. The lowest I was able to get was 1.75 on one of my properties at the time. I did a refi. I was able to get it at that rate. And then I had got another property in the very low twos as well. So I benefited off of this big COVID dip, and then the run up of where we're at now. So we're kind of back around that average price range. So people always want to ask when's the best time, to get a deal, and the best time was always, you know, yesterday, last month, last year, 2 years ago, 4 years ago, 5 years ago, 10 years ago, right? The story is the same. Once you have everything lined up, once you have your numbers and you have your finances and your game plan in order, time is really kind of maybe in your favor. We'll see if rates drop. If you lock in a rate now, and then if rates drop in the future, and if they're allowing refinances because they pause refinances for a minute, if you guys were keeping up with that. So a lot of things have to happen in order to be able to refinance your home. People think that, just because you get equity and, whatever you paid your mortgage on time, that you're going to be able to refinance your property. So it's really going to be based on what institution you go to. And we hit a period of about 2 months where they weren't doing barely any refinances. So people that were sitting on a lot of equity weren't able to refinance. So don't always think that, that's going to be your savior or that's what you'll be able to do. Like I said, you have to jump in, and then you're just going to have to manage the ship as you go, because a lot of times what people will do is they'll say, should I wait? Should I wait? Should I wait? And the whole time I was screaming from the top of the mountain, now is the time to get a property. Rates are very low. We haven't seen these rates in a long time. If you guys go back and check out any of the videos I've done in the past 4 or 5 years, that's all I've been talking about. So you just got to jump in the water, and then you got to, figure it out from there. Everyone's trying to, time the market, whether it be the stock market or time the real estate market. And, even people that have been doing this for 10, 15, 20 plus years still can't time the market. So jump in, like I said, get all your ducks in order, have your game plan on what it is that you want to do, jump in, and then you adjust as you go. Okay. So let's dive into buying a property from auction. So with the national average being the national home now, I believe is like 450,000, between somewhere like that is what the national average is for a home these days, which is crazy. But what a lot of people like to do is they like to go onto these different auction platforms, and I'm gonna send all these in the chat for you guys. But this can be a good way for you guys to find better deals than whatever your market is showing you, right? So when I had first got my very first deal through an auction, I was pretty much all in for about 20,000. I was able to turn around and flip it in about a month and a half for about 30,000. And then when everything was all said and done, I walked away with close to about 7,000. So it took me about 2 months to make 6,000 from the very first auction deal that I did. There was some that I did that didn't profit as well or do as good, and I'll kind of talk about that as well. But you can find good deals on here, and I'll kind of talk about some of the do's and some of the don'ts. But let me do the slides real quick for you guys, and then we'll go ahead and get into um, get into the websites and all that good stuff. And if you guys have any questions along the way, or if I'm moving too fast, or if something doesn't make sense, then just drop a message in the chat, and I'll make sure I cover it for you guys. So today we're going to be talking about buying a house at auction. So what is a house auction? So a house auction is a public sale where properties are sold to the highest bidder, often due to foreclosure, tax delinquencies, or estate sales. Some auctions will be in person, some auctions will be online, especially after COVID. A lot of these auctions transition to online. Now they're kind of slowly transitioning back to more in person. Some common reasons for house auctions. So house auctions commonly occur due to foreclosures, due to tax liens, estate sales, REOs. Those are bank-owned properties, and each of them really have their own different needs. So, like I said, some people are in the business for going for specific properties. Like maybe some people are foreclosure specialists, or some people are specifically tax lien specialists. Some websites that do have the auctions, some of them will say exactly which type of property it is, and some of them won't. You'll just be bidding on the property. They have their minimum. It will stay on there until the minimum price that they want is reached. And let's see. So understanding what the auction structures look like. So auctions can vary in structure and bidding style. So they have what's called absolute, they have minimum bid, they have reserve auctions, and they each have their distinct rules and strategies. So you go from one auction to the next auction, you could be in the same county, you could be attending one auction, then you can go attend a different auction, and the rules and the style can be completely different. So that's why it's always good to know exactly what your rules are, if there's any reserve prices, what the minimum bids are. Knowing all that information will help you go into the auction kind of having your numbers and knowing, and that's a big part of going to an auction, right? If you have 20,000 that you're looking to get for a property, and then you have a cushion of, let's say, 30,000 for repairs, maybe 40,000, or we'll just call it 50,000. So let's say you have 20,000 that you're looking to spend on a property. You're looking to potentially put 50,000 in, so you want to be all in for about 70,000. It wouldn't make sense for you to go into an auction and, if you know for sure, like, hey, I need to get a property for at least 20,000 or less because I plan on putting at least 50,000 into it. It won't make sense for you to go in and bid 30,000, 40,000, 50,000. Now you're at your price on what you wanted to spend for repairs already, and you still haven't even got to that point. So a lot of that is going to come down to your strategy and what it is that you're trying to do. Are you trying to get this property to turn around and just flip it right away where you don't, put anything into it? So then you might want to bid a little bit higher than you would if you know that you're going to try to fix it up and put some money into it and try to get more for it. The type of bidding and options. So bidding can be open, where bidders can see competing offers. There can be blind offers, where offers are submitted without visibility of other bids, affecting your strategy. So that's why I said you have to know your numbers, and you have to do your research. You have to do your due diligence and all that beforehand. And we'll kind of look at some properties to kind of give you guys a good idea of what I mean and how that will look. And, when it comes to doing research for the property, research auction details online or in person, assess the neighborhoods, and consider potential cosmetic or structural updates needed for the property. So this is going to be part of doing your due diligence, right? So let's say you're going to do an online auction and you're not going to go in person. Well, if you're going to do the online, is it going to be in the state that you currently live in, so you're able to go drive to where the address is? Or is it maybe in a state where you are already an investor at and you already have a team? Maybe you have a realtor, maybe you have a property manager, maybe you have someone that maybe inspected a house for you before, or maybe it might even be someone that does landscaping for you, and you could pay someone to go check out the property, maybe do a walkthrough. What I've done is I've reached out to property managers in the area that I was getting the property that I had no connects with, and she actually recorded. She kind of did a walkthrough of the street, walked around the outside of the property for me, took pictures and things like that. Because a lot of these properties, you're not going to be able to see the inside of the property, right? You'll be able to see the neighborhoods. You can check all the statistics and the numbers. You can check the comparables. You will be able to check what other properties are going for in the area. You can check the crime rates. You can check the schools. There's a lot of things that you can already do beforehand to even give you further conviction if that area is an area that you want to be putting your money into, especially if it's, if it's an investment or if it's your personal home. Setting a budget, right? That's what I was talking about. So you want to define your goals for the property. You want to use recent sales data to set a ceiling for your bid. You also want to factor in repairs, auction costs, and you don't want to have any financial surprises, right? The auction is going to get their cut. You might need to bring on a lawyer. So the type of auctions that I've done, I've always had to get a lawyer. That's another fee. If you have a realtor that's going to turn around and flip the property for you, if you're not doing it yourself, your realtor is going to take a fee for that. So you have a lot of fees that you'll have to pay out depending on what route you want to go. So having your numbers, having your set budget, and actually sticking to that, and don't have an ego, like don't be in there trying to uh ego outbid someone, because that can turn around and bite you in the butt. And that happened to me. So I'll be able to tell you guys that story as well. You want to make sure your financing is secure. So you want to make sure you have upfront funds or pre-approved financing. Auctions require commitment without contingencies, making pre-approval essential. So a lot of times what these auctions will do is they'll have a window. You'll know all this stuff up front. There's not going to be any surprises after the auction or during the auction. So the only surprise that you'll have is you get into the property and it be completely destroyed and you got to put more money into it than you thought you were going to need. So that's really, or maybe, the plumbing isn't working, or a big cost that's going to happen for the property that you didn't know prior to being able to get in and do a thorough inspection. So you always want to make sure your financing is good to go, ready to go. And then each auction will also let you know exactly how their structure is as far as the payment goes, whether if you need to pay, if you need to do a wire transfer, they have like a window. It might be 24 hours, 48 hours, 72 hours. Some auctions might be a little bit longer where they'll give you a little bit more time to produce the financing. But for the most part, most of them, you'll have to come up with the financing fairly quickly. So you want to make sure you have that ready to go. You're gonna have to register for the auction. So most registrations you're gonna need, ID, proof of funds, agree to their terms, and then some of these auctions they'll require you to have a deposit. And so most of the times, what that deposit will go to is once you bid on a property and you win that property, a lot of times that deposit will go to that property. Or if some of these auction websites require you to put like a certain payment just for you to be able to bid, that will also go towards if you close on a deal, that funds will go. So it's not funds that's just going to either the auctioneer or anything like that. That's something else completely after the auction is already done for. And then when you want to place your bids, if you're going in person, you want to arrive early. Even if you're doing it online, you also want to, get on there about 5 or 10 minutes early just to kind of see what's going on. Some of these online bids, they'll tell you how many people are currently active in the bidding group. In person is a little bit different, right? Because you'll be able to visually see how many people are there. Or if they have someone that's bidding for maybe a corporation or bidding for whoever, you might not see them. So um, stick to your budget and be prepared for a fast closing process. So typically within 30 or 45 days, but a lot of them are even quicker than that, especially after paperwork and all that. So I'll kind of explain how that looks. So there's, pros and cons to anything. Some advantages you'll have at buying at an auction is you'll be able to possibly get lower prices than you would if you were just buying something off market. And that can that's a big thing that's been driving a lot of people to these auctions. So there was a point in time where it was kind of in the know, right? Some people, there was a guy who was big on, they call him like the tax deeds king, this guy from Florida. I can't remember his name, but he wrote a lot of great books. He put out a lot of great courses on how to buy tax deed and tax lien properties. And a lot of people were starting to do those online. And then, especially when COVID hit, a lot of it, all of it went to online. And then now, like I was saying, how they're allowing people to kind of go more in person, you're seeing a lot more people show up either in person or even online to these auctions for the simple fact that prices are just getting out of control and you can typically find better deals at auctions. But the thing that comes with that is you're also competing against well-seasoned people that have been doing this for a very long time. So they know exactly what their ceiling price is because they already have a team in place. They already have contractors ready to go. They already have their realtors ready to go. If they might be a realtor themselves that is a realtor and an investor double dipping. So, you'll see a lot of competition for that, but don't let that scare you out. Like I said, I've been able to do this with no auction experience, and I've had a pretty good go at it, I would say myself. Some of the disadvantages is lacking being able to inspect, right? That's probably one of the biggest disadvantages that you'll have. Another disadvantage is you don't know who you're going up against in the bidding. You don't know what they know. You don't know who they know. But that's really pretty much about it, because you can do pretty much everything else. You can have a good idea of even if you weren't to put any money into the deal, you'll also have a good idea of what you'll be able to turn around and sell that property for just based off of kind of running the comps in the area, seeing what properties that are at least of the same property type. So meaning the same type of bath. So if it's a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, single family home, you can look at comps for 3 baths or 3 beds, 2 baths, single family homes that are all within that area. And you can get a good idea of what they've sold for already. So it will give you a good idea of if you needed to just turn around and sell that property, you'll have kind of a good idea of what you would at least be able to get to it, minus whatever crazy repairs it would need. Let's see, is buying at an auction right for you? So, consider whether buying at an auction aligns with your goals, with your financial situation, and what your risk tolerance is, right? That's going to look different for everybody. Um, like I said, it can be, getting an auction property can be a great thing, or it can be where you're going to have to bite the bullet, like I've had to do, and go from there. So let's go back to bid for assets. Let me see. All right. So boom, there's a bunch of websites, and I guess let me just send you guys the other websites before I go into the one that I've actually used. So I'm gonna send all these in the chat for you guys. Here's the first one right here. This is auction.com. You can go on here and you can see what they got. And you'll kind of see most of these platforms are very similar. They'll kind of tell you what the value is. They'll tell you, whether if it's going to be a foreclosure, like you can already see right here, they got a couple foreclosures. They got a private seller that's on here. You can kind of see what the resale value is. So, all this data that you're getting for free, you got to think everyone that's going to these auctions are getting the same type of data. So you're going to have to do a lot more on the preparedness side to, to prepare yourself for exactly knowing, okay, like this is my ceiling. This is the most, I'm looking for a property that fits this criteria. You got to do the research. You got to, you know, go around, check the schooling, check the crime, check what the comps have been going for, check and see what real estate has done in that area in the last 5 to 10 years. Has there been any growth, right? Is property values going up in this area? So if you guys live in the Midwest, or if you guys are already investors, you guys know Midwest doesn't have, you'll be able to get great properties for great prices, but then you also have very slow increase, right? Versus those coastal states, the Floridas, the Californias, the Carolinas, the Washingtons, the Oregons, those states, property values, are shooting up. The properties up north, the properties, kind of more on the West Coast are, the property values increase a lot higher than those properties that are in the Midwest region. So you also want to keep things like that in mind as well. Hubzoo.com is another one. Send this to you guys in the chat. Here's another one you guys can check out. And like I said, they're kind of very similar to the last one that we were just looking at auction.com. So you can kind of get a good idea. You see um, what we got going on here. This one right here, this auction is currently going. Highest bid is 101,000. There's 13 hours left on this one. This is going to be a bank-owned property. So a lot of these, especially that are going to be bank-owned, the banks know what they can get for these. So a lot of these, to find a real gem, I think you're going to have to be a little bit more experienced, and you're definitely going to have to do a lot more due diligence, because like I said, the banks are going to have, like this one, the starting bid is going to be at 75,000, and this is out in the middle of nowhere in Nevada. Winnemucca, wherever that's at. I don't even know where that's at. But unless it's Vegas and unless it's Reno, like even this Ely right here is a really small town. I bet it's probably only a town of maybe 5,000 people or less. Like pretty much outside of Vegas and outside of Reno, a lot of the places are small. So already coming off rip, with a minimum bid of 75,000 for this property out there, you're going to have to do that due diligence and see, what you want to do with that. But you guys got the general idea. Realtytrack.com is another one, another auction site that you guys can go find some foreclosures, see some recently sold, see what kind of resources they have, what you're trying to do. Realty Bid is another one. And you guys are seeing, if you notice, a lot of these are very common and very similar. So not too many of these websites have any big differences that kind of separate themselves. You'll just kind of have to go through, and then you'll just kind of have to see what maybe fits your style, or maybe the deposits that they require is a little bit better for you. You don't have to come out of pocket as much for a deposit and things like that, but you'll just kind of have to go through each one and figure out. You can also go to treasury.gov. They also have some good stuff. You could also go to HUD.gov as well, but I didn't bring that up. So when you come on here to treasury.gov, what you want to do is go to services, I believe. Let's see if I can find it on here for you guys. Let's see. Auctions, real estate. Boom. All right. So when you go onto the treasury.gov, click on services, go to the auctions. You can see they got a few different, if you want to look at, they got vehicles and stuff on here as well. And then you'll just click on the real estate, and then it will tell you upcoming, general terms of sale, how to bid, bidding results, frequently asked questions. You can see what's on there. Let's take a look and see what they got. Let's see, just one condo unit in Puerto Rico. Let's see if we see anything. Round Rachel Lane, Round Rock, Texas. Where is that at? Anybody from out around that area? Let's see what's going on with this one. So this one, you'll need a $20,000 deposit, cashier's check made payable. The starting bid is 80,000, and they don't have really too much other info on here. You can kind of see what taxes are hitting on. And then something you could do is you could take this. Let's see if we can see if Zillow is showing us anything for this property. What we looking like price wise. So Zillow's giving us a Zestimate. And like I've said many times before, these estimates that they have on there, they're getting a lot better than what they used to be. I've been showing Zillow for training purposes for pretty much since I started doing these classes. Good visual and just kind of a good look at numbers, and Zillow has definitely improved with all that. You can kind of get a good idea what you want to rent it for. I've done plenty of classes on going deeper, and if you're looking to rent out either your property or a property that you're investing in, kind of what you can get. So, just as just a general guide, just quickly doing this for you guys and looking, if we wanted to rent this property out, okay, maybe 2,000 to 2,400, right? 22 as the median. So we'll say on the low end, if we want to rent this property out, we'd be looking to possibly get about 2,000 a month in rent. And also, if we were looking to sell this property, right? If we wanted to buy this property and turn around and sell it, we know, okay, at least on a low end, maybe 300,000. We'll just call it 300,000. So when we go back to it, we see It has a starting bid of 80,000, which is cool. That gives us a lot of good wiggle room. So we don't know what the people that lived here before, what they did with it. Sometimes they'll have some stuff in the description. Some websites will give you more pictures than others, and some will just have this. So let's see if they got and then they also don't necessarily have the photo gallery up to date. So for the most part, they try to give people a good amount, to go off of, but then at the same time, you don't know when these pictures were taken. But just looking from these pictures, it doesn't look like, whoever left this, it doesn't look like there's anything too crazy going on. Just had a quick glance and just off of these pictures, they're going to have the best pictures on here. And then, like I said, we don't know exactly how up to date. So, basing everything off of just the pictures and the descriptions, don't base your final judgment off of what they say on here and what the pictures show, because you can and more than likely will probably have some surprises. So just keep that in mind. So not bad, right? They got a HOA. Yep, they got a HOA. So keep that in mind, all that good stuff. So yeah, so I would probably say, you know, just based off of looking at these pictures, I don't think there might be, too many things that are wrong just looking. So, I would say I would give myself at least a $50,000 grace on this property if I were to bid on it. So if I know, okay, I said, 300,000 on the low end if we were looking to just sell it, to give myself that grace, I would probably have my ceiling at about 220 to 200 and about 200 and maybe 40. I'd say between 220 to 240,000 what would probably be just, just throwing numbers out, just basically looking at this and seeing just the stuff that we've seen right now. I would say I would go with about 220 to 240 as my ceiling, just thinking I might have to put upwards of 50,000. 50,000, you'll be able to get a lot of home improvements with that. But like I said, that's just rough numbers, and that's kind of how I would go about it. That way, if I'm able to close for anywhere to 220 to 240, that's giving me at least about 100,000 in equity. That's giving me plenty of wiggle room if there are some big damages that need to be handled. And then it also gives me some room to just, play if I need to go out and get a HELOC, if I'm able to turn around and get a HELOC, get an equity loan and either put it into that property or, roll it over into the next property or whatever the case may be. But that's just a quick, like I said, I would need to do way more. I would need to look, see what this area is looking like. It seemed like rent is pretty decent, in this area. That's pretty, that's a pretty good amount, especially if you can get the property for under 300. If you can match kind of like that 1%, you'll really be kind of hitting a home run. So something like that, just to keep in mind. Where were we at? Boom, boom, boom. All right, let me go to back to bid for assets. So, all right, so bid for assets looks a little bit different than the rest of the websites that we've looked at. And they've grouped in a few. They have some county tax sales on here, some sheriff's foreclosures. I believe these are they got the Philadelphia one right here. The Philadelphia sheriff sales, which they always have some pretty good deals on there. They got the federal, state, and local. They have bank-owned properties. They have $1 no reserve auctions where the auctions start out as $1. But don't let that stuff fool you. I've watched many of those, and I feel like they have, excuse me, people that work for the banks that be bidding these stuff, bidding a lot of these things up. I don't know exactly, how true they're letting these listings go, but when you're dealing with the banks and stuff like that, they ain't about to just they're not about to let a super gem go for super cheap. So keep that in mind. And then you can see they got other stuff on here. They got, some art stuff, some coins, some jewelry. They don't have any cars or anything like that on this one, like some of the other ones do. Um, but yeah, then you can go by, whatever state. If you want to go by your state, if you want to see kind of what the tax sale calendar is, you can go on there. You can see kind of which counties they have for listings down here below. They have a resource center. They have video tutorials to show you how the bids and how the auctions are going to go, what you need to know, what they require for you to open. It's free to create an account, and in order to be able to bid, what you got to put on if you want to be able to sell on here, all that good stuff. So let's just kind of take a look at the real estate category. They also have land on here as well. So they don't just have homes, and you can see you can filter it through the type that you're curious about, whether if you want to just look for land deals, whether if you want to look for manufactured homes, single family homes. They have multi-family homes on here. They'll have commercial properties, residential properties. They'll have the whole nine. So let's just take a look at this first one that they have up right here. So you can see, all right, the current bid for this property, and you guys see it's in terrible shape, and it's out in Illinois. That's where Castle Rock, if any of you guys are familiar with the Illinois area, Castle Rock is where I got a couple of my auction deals from. Couple good ones. One that didn't work out so good. But anyways, so you can see for everyone that's created their account, that has their funds loaded in their account and things like that to be able to bid. They're able to bid on this current property right now. It closes in 3 hours. There's been 8 bids. It started out with a minimum of $1 bid. There is no reserve, meaning that there's no minimum reserve for this property. It's currently in progress. When it started, when it closes, there's 5 minutes of overtime. It's a private auction. This one doesn't require the deposit. There's a 10% buyer's premium once it closes, and it's had almost 2,000 views on it. So if you scroll down, it gives you all the data where you can go. Like I said, you should have, if this was a property that someone was bidding on, whoever these 8 bidders are, I would have hoped they've already done their due diligence to kind of know what's up in the area. And right here, they've posted, homes.com on what's the estimated value. And then it gives you a grid map to kind of see where the property is at with the street. It gives you the other lot numbers of the 2 properties next to it, and then also the ones that are kind of around it. And then it talks about what the yearly taxes are, selling as is. So it gives you a good description. And, they try for the most part, they try to give you as much data that they can without, you know, kind of really going overboard. So they're just kind of giving you, it's showing you that the property taxes are past due for 2023 and 2024. So it gives you a good idea. But also when you get these, like I said, when I've purchased through here, they require you to get a lawyer to go through, make sure there's nothing else attached to the property before they sign everything over to you. But the whole process is fine. And they'll show you what the mode of payment is: a wire transfer, no credit card payments. Payment is due 2 business days after the auction ends. The seller will provide the notarized deed within 24 hours of payment and will record the deed with the county. Okay, so for this property, whatever the final bid is, you got your 10% buyer's premium that you'll have to pay, and then whatever lawyer fees that you'll have to pay for them to clear the title and everything for you. And then once everything is all said and done, they'll get you the deed within 24 hours. So let me see. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Um, Surprised that those are the only images that they have. Let's see if we see anything else on here. Let's see if we can go. Let's see if they got anything on Zillow for this property. But yeah, so the bidding process and everything is very simple. If they have a lot of people bidding towards the very end, I've seen where they've extended the time. They've extended the time before if there was a lot of people bidding, but if there's not many bids, they'll just end the bid, and then hopefully, you'll get it at a price that, that you want. So it doesn't have any detail on that property. So what I would do for this one is I would just look kind of deeper. I would do the Google Maps thing with this property. I would look and see. Let's see if we can do a Google's map with this property and see if we can kind of get an idea of what the street and stuff looks like. Let's see. Does the title attorney need to be from the state of the property that you're bidding in? Yeah, so they already had, for when I had did it, they already had someone that was already working that I guess works with them. But I'm sure you'd be able to go through whoever you wanted to go through. But when I had did mine, they already had someone. And what were your estimated lawyer fees? I believe it was 130 or $140. So it was no more than that. The first property I had got through auction, I closed for 20,000, and that one was yeah about $140 to the lawyer, to the attorney. And then the second one that I had got was about the same. It was about 17,000, and then about 120, 130, and then the third one that I had did was kind of about the same. So yeah, it's kind of about that price range. So like I said, when I paid the when I paid the 20,000 for the first one that I got, everything actually closed at like 18,000 and some change. So with the fee that I had to pay, the attorney fee and everything like that, and then I also had paid for some landscaping work to get done as well. So everything came out, when I was telling you guys my fees, everything had came out to about 20,000. So, and then yeah, it just depends. Like it says iPhone, doesn't say your name, but like they say, other states vary. Like in New York, it'd be 1,500 to 2,000. So bigger states, the Californias, if you're in those bigger, if you're not necessarily in a bigger state, but you're in one of those bigger cities, definitely look to pay a lot more. Like I said, I was getting these out in Illinois. If any of you guys are familiar with real estate, all throughout Illinois, except for pretty much Chicago, you can find some pretty good deals and things aren't going to be as expensive as like somewhere in New York or Cali or anything like that. But yeah, so what was I saying? What was I trying to look up? Oh yeah, I want to see if they had the Google Maps Street View. Let's see if they got it on here or not. If they did. Oh, here we go. Let's see what's going on. Let's see what's going on down here if we can get our little guy out here. Nope, it don't look like the Google car done went through this area. So yeah, so I would dig a little bit deeper. I would look more at some properties. I would try to find some properties that are on this street. I would dig more into, looking to see what's going on in this area. I would look and see what's the closest big city that's, around this area, how the crime is looking, if there's anything being built in the area, those big companies, any, Boeing, any Amazon, any Microsoft, any, headquarters like that, I would look into that stuff. It looks like it's closest to maybe Duncanville. I'm not a big Illinois uh expert, so I don't know if any of you guys are from Illinois, what's the next closest big city to this area? So those are the things that I would look at, if I was considering investing in this property, because we're not getting too much details on anything else. Where are we at? Back over here. And as just off of this one little picture right here, we can see it's definitely going to need some work, right? So we know that it's what's the specs on it? Let's see if they have. It's a two-bedroom, one bath. So it's looking like just off of this one picture, it's gonna need some work, right? We're gonna have to put some money into this, probably anywhere from 50 to 100,000, just depending on how much work is needed to be done. Does it need to be completely demolished and completely rebuilt? Or, is the structural inside, is the structural integrity still good enough to where, we're good structure wise and we just have to build around it? We're gonna have to look at some of these trees, see if we're gonna have to, get some of these trees removed. It's gonna look like we're gonna need, some landscaping work done. Definitely gonna, probably gonna need new roofing and all that. So this would be a property that for sure, just looking at this picture, you're gonna have to put some money into it. So that's stuff that you need to consider. Let's see if we can see any land or anything like that. Yeah, complete demo. Yeah, that's probably gonna be a complete demo more than likely. Let's see what we got. This manufactured home. Let's see if we can find one that has more pictures for us. Let's see. Sometimes they'll load up. Let's see if it'll just come up. Oh yeah. So I wish I had the pictures up or the video walkthrough from the first property I got. This is beautiful compared to the one that I had bought. Let's see. But a lot of times, especially I've noticed properties for that are on bid for assets, a lot of the properties look like this for whatever reason. Like they have them properties that are definitely gonna need some work. It's more so you find bet like the one that we looked at through the government website through the treasury.gov. This one looked, as we were looking, this one looks straight. Obviously just from pictures, from the outside looking in, there could be bigger issues, but this one almost looks turnkey ready. When that other one that we looked at and this one right now are definitely not going to be turnkey ready. I don't think I've seen a property that was really turnkey on bid for assets. Now, when you go into the sheriff's auctions and stuff like that, like in this one, you'll see better turnkey properties that are for the most part ready to go. And turnkey just means that it's either has renters already in it, or once you buy it, it's already rent ready. Maybe you need to put 5,000 or less into the property, if that, 2,500 or less. As you can see, they got a bunch of land on here. So, we did a three-part land class, and they're all uploaded in the university section. So if you guys want to get more familiar with buying land and what you can do with land, go check those classes out. I brought on some great land experts, and they literally walk through A to Z on what you guys would need to do if you want to get into the land, either flipping, um, renting off sections of the land, depending on where you're at, and all that good stuff. Let's see. Go ahead here. Let me see if I can find something that has a lot of bids already. Let's see what got a lot of bids. So this one has the most bids. This is the one that we just looked at. Let's see what this one is talking about. This one is in Colorado. This would be something I would look. Yeah, it's looking like, see what I'm saying? This is gonna need some work. But these aren't always the type of properties that you're gonna deal with at auction. It just depends on which which auction website you decide to use. Because even this one that we were looking at, some of the foreclosures, like this one right here, looks like it could be possibly a turnkey already. It's in LA. Anytime you're dealing with the Californias, you're gonna have to be on your P's and Q's because you're dealing with a lot of seasoned investors and people that come to these auctions and stuff. So, if you're a newbie, I would say, just get your feet wet. Start attending as many online auctions as you can. You don't necessarily have to place any bids. Just kind of get yourself familiar. If you want to find some local auctions that are in your area, just Google local auctions in Los Angeles, California, or Houston, Texas, Dallas, Texas, or you can go down to your local county assessor's office. A lot of times they'll be able to give you information, seeing when they have any upcoming auctions. Let's see what else. So yeah, like I said, it's gonna be, all these websites are gonna be different as far as what the requirements are for you to be able to bid and all that stuff. All of them are free to create an account. It's just gonna be on you. And there's more than just these ones. These aren't the only ones. I just wanted to pull up some ones for examples for you guys. But and then like I said, if you just want to go to Google, let me get this out the way. If you just go, what state are one of you guys in? I know someone said New York. Someone throw me a different state. DC. All right. Maryland specifically. Okay. Let's do real estate auction, Maryland. All right. So boom, here we go. A couple of them pop up. You got one. This is the auction.com. This is one of the websites that I already talked to you guys about. Maryland State Police, they have one. Let's see what they got going on here. And then let's see. Oh, they send everyone the gov deals for here. Let me see if I can find a different one. Let's see what's up in Ashland. They cover the DMV area, looks like. And then boom, so you can go on here. You can see, when they end, what they got going on. These are the three so far, the three featured. Let's see what's going on with this one. And then, like I said, you could reach out to them. They have all their contact info. And let's see what the details are. So the auctions begin tomorrow at 10. They end on the 19th. It's looking like luxury condos in the Seven Eagles area. If you're familiar with that area, you got a little more details on here. Let's see. They kind of give you idea for taxes, the condo fees, the buyer fees. They kind of already give you if it's bikeable, if it's car dependent, as far as if you need to run errands, groceries, it kind of gives you a score of everything as far as that. These properties are one bed, one bath. You got the address, so you can already go do your research on the area, your starting bid, and your initial deposit on what you have to put for your initial deposit. So then if we just go, oh, this is Florida. I don't know why this showed. For some reason, I felt like we were it took us all the way to Florida. Let's see why it had it. Here we go. Here's Baltimore. All right, let's find someone. Let's find one for the DMV. I don't know why it took me all the way uh to Florida, but let's look at one for Baltimore. So this one is a little bit different. So we got our address right here, when it begins and ends, same info. The starting bid on this one is 1,000 compared to the 100,000 one that we've seen in Florida. It seems like it's close to the stadium. The scores are a little bit better than that last one that we were looking at in Florida. The buyer's agent fees, I can't remember what it was on that last one. I think this one is a little bit cheaper. And pretty much the same info on there. Let's see if they got any bid, no bid history. You got some auction info. You got the terms and all that good stuff that you can go through and read. You got a few pictures on here looking at the property, what it's next to, and then a few pictures of the street. So doesn't look too bad compared to some of those other properties that we were looking at. And then what were the details? Does it show the baths? Three-story townhouse. It's not giving us how many beds and baths are on there. So let's see if we can get some more info on this property. Do a better street view. So it looks like those other two townhomes are rented out. They're not boarded up. But like I said, we don't know how long these images were taken. So, this is something that you can do, just kind of look around the block, kind of see what's going on. Okay, another property is boarded up. These are all three of these are boarded up. So, it seems like there's trouble either renting or finding people to want to move in over here in this area, just seeing so many places boarded up. But, for the most part, it don't look too bad. Could be promising. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with this area. We don't know how new or how old these images were taken. So you would want to look at, a lot more other things like schooling, crime. We already seen what the walking score and all that is. Let's go back. Let's look at, curious if there's anything on Zillow on here. So it just has what the minimum bid is on there for the auction. Built in the 20s. See, it has all the auction info already on there. Kind of see where it's at. Like I said, I'm not too familiar with this area. Trying to see if there are some previous prices on here. Doesn't look like they have price history. Kind of gives you a good idea what, potentially once you fix it up, what you might be able to get for rent. But like I said, it's looking like just from seeing everything board up, I would actually want to physically drive through and kind of see what's going on, see if any other investors maybe might have scooped up those other boarded up properties. Schooling in the area is kind of trash, a 1, a 2, and a 4. So, usually when you see areas where the school ratings are so low, you know that crime is probably higher in the areas as well. So that might be something that's steering people away from wanting to either buy or rent in the area. So these are all things that you got to consider, whether if you're, especially if you're an investor, if you're just looking to get your own crib, your own house, those are things that you maybe you don't have any kids and you're not going to have any kids, or maybe your kids are all moved out, or maybe you homeschool so you're not really worried about the schooling, and then maybe it's just you're worried about the crime in the area, or is there any growth in the area, what's going on. So if we zoom in on this map, this is kind of showing what other properties in the area are going for. So it kind of gives you a good idea if you can get a fixer upper for the Lowski, and then let's say, a good friend of mine, what he did was he found a really nice neighborhood in Oregon that where most of the homes were 1 million up, and he was looking for a house in that area for 800,000 or less, and he ended up finding a property for like 700 and something thousand. He put like 120, 130,000 into it. He was all in for maybe like 850, and then um when he got the property reassessed, the ARV and everything was like 1.2. So he ended up having like 350, 400,000 in equity by buying the house, the lemon on the block that nobody wanted, and then he put money into it. So this is what I was trying to zoom in a little more on this to look at some of these other properties. See this side of the street going east to west, not north to south. You see these all are going for, you see some 138,000, 185,000, 206,000. You see some potential on here, but then you look on this street and everything is just terrible, like super low prices. Everything's looking boarded up from the images. So, you know, just just off the strength of just seeing all that, I would just move on to the next property. And like I said, it all depends on what type of investor you are. Are you looking for a property that you can get for super cheap, maybe not have to put so much into it and be able to rent it out? Or are you looking for something that's somewhat decent in a somewhat decent area that you don't really have to put too much money into, and that you're still able to either rent it out if you do decide to rent it out, or live in it for a little bit to either fix it up, or whatever the case may be. That's on you. It's going to look different for everyone on what they're trying to do. So, but yeah, did you guys want me to look in one more? Do you guys want me to look in one more state real quick, or one more city before we wrap this up? Ashland is not bad. Franklin Square is kind of rough. I figured out that's where the wire was at. Oh yeah, definitely staying away from out there. Google image said 2019. Okay. So yeah, so ain't no telling how it's looking now. It could be even based on just that Zillow, that north to south that we was looking at, that strip kind of told me everything I needed to know already. But like I said, it could be a diamond in the rough, depending on if they're trying to clean things up out there in Baltimore or not. You just gotta have some you gotta also have some future vision as well. Like you can't always just if you're thinking you're going to get a property that's not very expensive in a great area, good luck with that. The not saying that it can't happen, but so much goes on within the real estate world as far as realtors who are investors that are friends with these auctioneers, and they're friends with, people that work at the county. So a lot of times people have a lot of ups on you, but once you kind of get your foot in the door, and once people see that, oh, this person is serious, they might start throwing more deals your way or give you more of a heads up than a lot of other people. Like I said, this is just a game. that I don't want to say a lot of people know about, but a good amount of people know about, buying auction properties, whether it be tax liens, tax deeds, foreclosures, whatever the case may be, HUD properties and all that stuff. Not saying that that's a big industry, but there are plenty of ways for people who aren't seasoned investors at all, just looking to get in, right? It's just gonna be a little more uphill battle for you than people that are already in the game. So you just got to start. All right, someone said Georgia. All right, let's look at Georgia. What part of Georgia? Um, what city in Georgia do you want me to look up? It's weird that it showed me Florida. Could have swore I thought I had clicked on Baltimore, Atlanta, it's Macon. It's just bringing up, let's see, Fulton County. Here we go. Good old Fulton County. I got some. Atlanta is my old stomping grounds. I used to be out in Smyrna all the time. Um, doing a bunch of stuff I had no business doing out there. All right, let me see what we got. What we're looking for. Property and vehicles. Let's see. Let's look and see where the auctions are at up in here. Uh, yeah, Atlanta's a good spot. I really recommend people take advantage if you're in like those good cities that you can still kind of make real estate work for you, especially like Atlanta, especially if you're not in the super nice areas of Atlanta where everything is expensive. You can kind of still find stuff in like the outskirts, like I just helped somebody find a house in, is it Duncanville? Is it Duncan or Douglasville? One of them vills. But I always recommend people take advantage of NACA. I feel like NACA is so slept on, and it's just such a good way to get into real estate and just get you a property without having to worry about coming out of pocket with so much and not necessarily having to worry about doing the FHA and meeting all those standards and stuff like that. Yeah, Douglasville is a good spot. It's dope because it's literally like northeast of Atlanta. You're only maybe 30 to 50 minutes, depending on traffic, to get to the airport and stuff like that. And I was able to help somebody get a really nice house. They were able to get a two-story house, 4 bedroom, 3 bath for like 315,000 or something like that. And they didn't have to put any work into the property at all. Like it was completely turnkey, really nice property. But anyways, so here we go on here. Fulton County, ga.gov shows you how to bid, frequently asked questions. Let's take a look at this property right here. See what's going on. See what's up right here. 2 beds, 1 bath, 306,000. See, it's not really giving us too much. I want to try to find some pictures since it wasn't showing on there. Let's see if they got another one on here. This one on there. The same. All right, they don't have any of the pictures for either one of these. This one don't even have a. Let's see, find some on this one. Nothing on that one either. So you just got to go off of. You either have to go to the area and drive and see what they got going on over there. But it gives you a little bit of property description. Uh, it's bound by vacant lot. Special notes. Let's see if we can find a different one out there in Atlanta. Let's see if we can find something on the tax sale side. Register tax sales list. And then here we go. We got some of these on here. I want to try to look at one. Let's see. 2391 Bigwood Trail. College Park, Bubba Sparks. Let's see. Was that College Park? Didn't say, but more than likely. Yeah. Let's see what this one's looking like. So this one looks like it could be something. So this one is from let me close some of these out. Oh wait, no, that was the right one. So this one was from the same one, fultoncounty.gov.ga.gov, but it was through the Fulton County Sheriff's Office one. Let's see. But yeah, so as you guys see, like I said, it's literally that easy. Simple Google, put in your city, put in your state, auctions, real estate auctions, properties for sale, tax liens, tax deeds, foreclosures. Those are all the keywords that you want to use. Um, and then get on there and just check them out. See what you guys see. Like I said, especially if you're looking to get into real estate, if you want to try a different niche, there's so many niches within real estate that I try to tell people you don't have to just stick to one thing. You got fix and flip, where you buy a property, either you fix it up if you have some skills, you have a team help you fix it up, and then you turn around and sell it, hopefully for a profit, right? So an example of that would be, let's say you buy a property for 50,000, it needs 50,000 worth of work, and you can turn around and sell it for, let's say, 120,000. So you put in 100,000, you were able to turn around and sell for 120,000 after maybe all fees and everything, maybe you walk away 10, 15,000. Some people are doing that. They're maybe doing a couple of those a month. It just depending on how much you can take on your plate, how big your team is, how experienced you are. That's one way. Some people like to go the bird method, where you buy a property, you rehab the property, you rent the property out, you turn around and refinance the property, and then you repeat and turn around and do that again. So kind of how the numbers, these are just example numbers. So let's say you buy a property for 50,000 again, and you turn around and you put 30,000 into the property. After you buy it, after you rehab it, it's good to go. You're all in for 80,000. Let's say you go to a bank, it's worth 120,000 or 100,000, and let's say the bank will give you either 80 to 90% the ARV. So let's say, you know, we'll say for this instance, the bank will give you 90% ARV after repair value. So let's say you bought the property for 50,000, you put 30,000 in it, you're all in for 80,000. The after repair value now of this property is 100,000. The bank will give you a 90% ARV. That means they'll give you 90,000. You paid 80,000. Your profit is 10,000 in between, and then you turn around and you take that money and you do that again. That's one method. It doesn't necessarily always work out like that, but that's another niche within real estate. You got some people who are just tax deed experts, where they're just looking for tax deeds. You have people that are tax lien experts, where they're just looking for liens, or you have people that are foreclosure experts, and that's all they're looking for. You have, um, you have, uh, people that like to buy properties, auction property, whatever the auction may be. They don't care whether if it's tax deed, tax lien, foreclosure, whatever the case may be, they're looking for those. You also have people who are turnkey investors who are looking for properties that are fixed up and ready to go, or they already have renters inside them. So all they do is they get the property for a good deal. They already have the numbers of what the tenant is paying every month. It matches up everything that they're looking for, and they like to just hit the ground running that way. You have people who like to go the Airbnb route, so they're only looking for properties in high touristy areas or out in the mountains and do, some cool stuff, and they like to go the Airbnb route. You have people that rent out to travel nurses that partner with, big, if you're near a big hospital and you want to partner with them and work out some kind of deal because they have travel nurses that constantly come through. You have people that just do that. You have people that are near colleges that like to rent out each individual rooms. You have some people that have a house, live in a section of the house, and maybe turn a portion of it into an Airbnb or turn a portion of it into a rental where they'll rent out, they have a 3 bedroom, they'll live in one, they'll rent out the other two. So, like I said, there's so many different niches within real estate. It's just going to be based on, what works best for you and what works well for you. There's a lot of people who are realtors and investors at the same time. And then they're, kind of paying, they're double dipping. So they're paying themselves that commission for, properties that they're buying and selling. There's a lot within real estate. So you just have to, there's people who, you can go the REIT route where you buy real estate trusts. That's kind of like on some stock market type stuff where, REITs, they'll pay you a good dividend each quarter, or some pay monthly, like, property is, they pay monthly. And NYMT is another REIT. They pay dividend quarterly every 3 months. And there's a lot of other good ones out there. Trying to think, there's people that, commercial side. So like I said, there's so many ways to get in the game and to just kind of, figure out what works best for you. Some people, if you're more of like a people person and you really like getting your hands wet and dirty, I would recommend get your realtor license or get into real estate some way, whether it be on the lending side or become an inspector. Do something to where you can constantly stay busy. You while you're working your flips, you still have something bringing you income in until you get your traction going, until you really hit the ground and see what works best for you. But I would say try as much as you can. There's mobile home investing. You can become your own bank. You can buy a mobile home, and you can structure the financing with your tenant to where they pay so much over, let's say, a 5 year span, and then after 5 years you just hand them over the deed. So let's say you buy a mobile home for 10,000 and you're making 5,000 a year in rent, and you tell a person, hey, I'll keep your set rent for 5 years. You pay rent for 5 years, and eventually, at that 5 year mark, I'll just hand you over the deed. So you're kind of acting as a bank for them. So let's say they can't necessarily afford that 10,000 up front, but they can afford that $500 a month that you're charging in rent. So you just kind of become the bank. So it's like you pay 10,000 for the mobile home, you pay whatever that fee is to keep that home set there. You rent it out for $500 a month. You do a 5 year contract. You made 3, 4 times what you, well, more than that, but you recoup everything that you paid and you make a profit at the end when everything is all said and done. So that's a way that you can go. There's ways for you guys to get properties without even needing to go through the bank. You could have, what's called seller financing. You can have the person, that is selling the property. You never know what a person is going through. You can structure it to where it's called seller financing, where you guys could work out something to, let's say, I forget what the word is. It's called a oh, it's gonna come to me. Damn, it's about to rack my brain. But anyways, it's a way for the you and the seller to come in agreement with the property. So I really wish I could think of the term. It's going to drive me crazy. But you guys can structure it to, no, it's not subject to financing. It's oh man, it's driving me, it's right at the tip of my brain. But anyways, the way how it works is it's a, no, it's not lease to own or owner financing. Lease to own was what I was talking about with the mobile home. Now what I'm talking about is, let's say you find a 4 unit building that you want to get, and you can go to the owner and you guys can structure it to where you tell them, okay, I'll take over the property for you and I'll pay you a certain amount every month or every year. And then after 5 years of me, putting money into it, managing the property, all that stuff, I'll pay you a certain amount. So let's say right now that property, we'll just say a million, we'll just call it, we'll say it's worth $1 million right now. It's in an area where real estate is growing, property values are increasing. So you've done your research, and obviously things could happen that, your numbers could be off. But for the purposes of this, we'll just call it, we'll say the value of the property. You expect the value of the property to go up to at least 1.5 million, right? Over a 5 year span. So we'll just call it 1.5. So what you'll do is you'll tell the owner, okay, I'll take over the property for you. We'll agree on this 1 million sales price. In 5 years, I'm going to manage the property. I'm going to be the one handling everything, where the person that currently owns it, they're completely out of the picture. You guys do this contract, and this contract it doesn't give you the title to the property yet, because you guys have to reach that 5 year mark, but they can't do anything with the property. So even though the property is still in their name, they can't say that, you don't have the right to it or any of that. It's a legal binding contract that you have with that current seller, to where at 5 years you pay them that price that you agree on. So let's say you guys agree on 1 million today, and let's say in 5 years another boom happens and it's worth 3 million. They don't get the split, they don't get the difference. All whatever the value of the property is 5 years from now, you get to reap all those rewards, and you have to cut them that $1 million check or whatever price you guys agree on. It's called a something lease. Uh oh goodness. Can't even think. I'm gonna send it to you guys. I'm gonna find it in the name of it. It's something that I had learned later in the game, which I wish I had learned about right away, because I would have been able to. No, it's not owner financing. It's owner financing, but it's a specific verbiage, and it's a specific type of contract that you have to do. But if I would have known about this, the person that I bought my first building from, so my very first property was a 4 unit building, but there was three other 4 unit buildings that were like, it was like a B, a C, and a D unit type of deal. And the guy was really old, and he was selling all four of them. And so I actually reached out to him, and I was like, hey, like, at this time I was like, I'm only able to get, I could get one, maybe two, but you would have to come down a lot on the second one for me to get that second one from you. And he was ready to retire. He just wanted, he was already kind of coming low on the price already as it was. And so he was just really trying to sell all them at once. So I was lucky enough to get the one, and then literally probably like 2 months later someone else came up and scooped up the other three. And if I would have known about this, if I would have known about this, like owner financing, pretty much, that I could have presented that to him, and did that, and I could have came up crazy, because those buildings end up going up in price over like a 6 year time frame, like something crazy. Like they went from 250,000 to about 1 million each for each building. So crazy stuff. But we live and we learn. But I'm gonna find the exact terminology that I'm talking, the specific thing that I'm talking about. But yes, lease purchase agreement, owner financing, like lease to own, all that is, it's all pretty much the same. There's just certain verbiages and certain type of contracts that you have to do depending on what it is that you're trying to do. But you guys get what I'm saying. You guys get the main gist of it. But a lot of cool stuff that you can do within real estate. Like I said, there's a lot of cool things that you can do. You're just gonna have to try some stuff out and just see what fits best for you, because we're all different. All of our goals and what we're trying to do is a lot different. So I would say try, at least try a couple of them. I would definitely say try the Burr method. I would say definitely try to, go the auction route. And it might not work out, but then you might try a couple, you'll get your feet wet, you'll get the experience, you might lose some money, but you're going to gain the knowledge, and then it's just going to help you from there. So I told you guys about the deals that went good for me. The deal that went bad for me was literally my own fault. It could have been things that were avoided. So what I did was, every time that I was buying these auction properties, I was buying them, one, in states that I've never invested in, I didn't have a team in, and I never went and did the due diligence as far as looking around. My first few deals were a success, so I'm thinking, okay, I found my stride. I found, this cool little niche that I can turn around. It's not like I was making crazy money. Like I said, the very first one I did, I only made like five or 6,000, but it was over a 2 month span that I had to wait before everything was finally done and settled. So it's not like, but if I would have been doing that at scale, now you times that by 10, 15, 20 deals at a time. Now, we're talking a lot better numbers. But so the deal that went
Super
south
successful.
was I got it for about 12,000. It was all said and
Come
done.
out this room. I'm
It
getting it
needed to
back.
be, hold on, let me mute whoever just came on. Or if you could just mute yourself, whoever that is. But anyways, so yeah, so I got this property for, I think it was like about 12 or 13,000, something like that. It was less than 15 grand, but it was a complete demolish. Yeah, I mean, it needed to be demolished and completely rebuilt. And at the time, it would have cost me about 80 grand to get everything in that area. I had found a team, I had found a property manager who was really cool, and she ended up looking out for me. I ended up sending her some money, but I never even used them as property management. So something that I did was, and this was, I was like, man, I need someone to go look at these deals for me. So what I did was I called property managers in the area, and I was like, I got this one. I talked to this lady. I said, hey, I'm a real estate investor. I currently have XYZ amount of properties throughout, this many states. I'm looking to invest here. I actually just bought, a property out here. Would you be willing to go look at it for me? Because I don't live in the area, and I don't have anybody in the area, and I told her I would cut her in on, whatever, whether if I sold it or anything like that, or if I needed them to manage the property, I was going to cut her in. So this lady that I've never met, talked to one time, we didn't have no contract or anything. She was literally going to these properties for me, recording them. She was getting the keys for me. She was finding landscapers for me to cut the grass. I mean, sometimes I don't know. Sometimes I just feel like when you just have good intentions, and when I don't know, just I just feel like when you have good intentions and when you're just a good person, just things just really just seem to just line up and just work really good for you. Because I seriously, I don't even, still to this day, I don't even know why that lady even was willing to just do that. Like, we didn't have no agreement on me paying for her gas to go out there. Like, it was just, she was just like, I don't know, it was just a good conversation, and she was really interested in what I was doing, and she had never worked with people that were buying auction property, so she thought that was kind of cool. But when she had got to that first property, that was crazy. She wouldn't even walk in it. She had to call like one of her handy guys, and he walked in and did the walk around, and that property was crazy. But anyways, so the property that ended up not working out for me, it needed way too much money for me to put into it, because the ARV for that area was only like 50,000. I think homes were only going for like 50 to 60,000. It was in the middle of nowhere, Illinois. I think they call it it's like the Tri Cities, I think is what they call it out there. It's like three areas, like we're over in like that Castle Rock. I forget the other name of the little towns over there. But a lot of the home, like crime was kind of going up at the time, a lot of abandoned buildings, and craziness. But anyways, so it needed too much work, and then so I just was like, well, let's just list it and sell it. I listed it. The very first offer, someone offered like 1,000. I knew I was in trouble at that point. And then one guy was willing to give me 10,000 for it. But I'm like, no, let me just wait. Something told me to just take it and just take the like $3,000-4,000 L or whatever it was. So I'm like, no, let me just wait and see if I can get something better. Waited to try to see, couldn't get nothing better. The dude turned around and offered me like 6,000 or something like that. And so it had been like 2 months. I wasn't getting any deals, any offers. And so I just went on ahead and just cut my losses with it. So I was still able to get rid of it and sell it. But it was just a good lesson for me. It let me know that, hey, I shouldn't be getting these auction properties without doing due diligence. So even though it worked out, those times that it worked out, I just didn't even want to keep going down that road of keep getting those bumps in the road. So I figured out how the auction process worked. And then the only thing that I was missing was I should have been doing it in either areas that I was already an investor with, area I was familiar with, or somewhere that I lived in, so I can go do the due diligence, drive around, because a lot of these auction properties, when you have the address, you're able to at least go do a walk around the property so you can get a good look. If there's no one living in there, you can look in the windows and things like that. But yeah, so that was my sour deal. So it wasn't like it was, horrible. It just didn't work out in my favor how I wanted it to. But it was a good lesson for me. It let me know like, hey, like if you're gonna do this, take it serious. Like you take, all the rest of your deal serious. And I was just, it was working out. So I'm like, all right, let me just keep doing it till it don't work out no more. So but it was cool. It was a pretty simple and easy process. I was able to do everything from my computer. I was literally able to buy a whole property from my computer without needing to even be in the location. So it's like stuff like that is still crazy to me. I know we are where we're at with technology and all that good stuff, but it still is just crazy to me that hey, if you got the funds and you got everything lined up, you can buy a property just sitting from your couch. You don't even got to be on a computer. You can be on your phone. But yeah, so do you guys got any questions for me? Any questions at all on buying a property through uh whether it be foreclosure or tax deed, tax lien, any type of auction property? Yeah, I would agree if it financially makes sense to try to venture out in your home state first so you be more hands-on. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it can definitely be done easily if it's not in the state that you live in. You just like I said, you just got to make sure you have a good team, have boots on the ground for you, someone to kind of look at those things that we talked about, just to maybe save yourself from getting something that's completely ran down. But yeah, other than that, I would definitely recommend start with your state. There's going to be auctions within your state. Every state has real estate auctions. It might not be one might not be coming up in your county. Just venture around, your state. Go for the drive, make it a weekend trip if you need to, just to get your feet wet and get that experience. But if the numbers are right, it can be pretty profitable. Are you still in the real estate space or did you slow down for Bitcoin? So yeah, so I've talked about this many times. I got completely out of the real estate game and I put everything into Bitcoin. And right now I'm coming up on close to 200% returns on all my real estate transferring over into Bitcoin. So I was real public about that. And when I did that, I've thought about getting back into real estate just because there's so many ways to get into real estate now that I know about that it wouldn't require me to use any of my capital. There's so many programs out there, especially I was really close to closing a USDA property about a year and a half ago because it was just too good to pass up. But I just, I like this path that I'm on now, hands off, not having to, even though I always tell people my real estate journey it was pretty easy for me because I passed everything off to property managers. So I hardly had to do anything. I just had to get all the knowledge and all the information and I had to figure out, how to run my numbers, how to find a good deal, the networking and all that stuff. And I've had my share of tenants, the crazy tenants, and more so towards the end of my real estate journey. But for the most part, I don't think I don't even think I had one full month of tenant not paying. Maybe late a little bit. I've had to replace some roofs. I've had to do some septic stuff. I've had to do some water heater stuff, some foundation stuff. So there's definitely a good amount of things that I had to do. I've done, I've had multi-family properties, single families, duplexes. I've rented out rooms. Man, I've tried to do as much as I could within real estate for the things that I like. I found out right away that I love turnkey properties. Like turnkey properties for me, it just completely makes sense. I'm able to get all the numbers. I'm a numbers person. You guys, I talk about that a lot. I'm a numbers person, so my very first time, getting that first property, when I had the numbers of what the renters were already paying and then I already had from my lender what I was going to have to pay every single month. Once you compare the two, like once you already have your numbers of what your mortgage is going to be, taxes, insurance, all that good stuff, what you're going to have to pay for, landscaping, all the things that come with being a landlord. And then once you already have tenants that are already in the spot, and especially if you're already getting market rent, you can give yourself a really good idea, like, okay, like, how long am I expected to be in this property? Let's say if you're living in it, let's say if you're doing a owner occupied property, you can really give yourself a good gauge. Unless something crazy happens in the world, then obviously, you can't account for that kind of stuff. But for the most part, we have these long periods where things will kind of go somewhat decent until they rock the boat, and then, things hit the fan. But I was able to compare what everyone was already paying versus me living, because whether if you're renting or whether if you're an owner, you're still paying, whether it be taxes, insurance, you're still gonna have to pay something regardless. So I was able to calculate all that and see, okay, once I raise rents X amount, I'll know that I'll be in the green, like I'll be cash flowing every month. And that's with a property manager and with all that. So for me, it just seemed a lot easier, and it made more sense for me to have all the numbers already for me. And then I just go out and find the best I just go find the best deal based on my calculations on what works for me. Some people I know that are great when it comes to fixing and flipping because they already have teams. They're able to do 5 to 10 deals a month, and that's just what's comfortable for them. And that's why I say, the real estate world is it's like someone said, the real estate hustle is different. It really is. Like it's crazy the things that you can do within real estate, and how much it can change your financial trajectory depending on how serious you take it, and how hard you go with it. And I'm telling you guys, I went as hard as I could go with real estate. I made sure I exhausted. I was starting to dabble with commercial and everything. I wanted to make sure I was touching as much as I could, networking with as many people as I could. I mean, for you guys, I brought on some great people talking about how to develop. I brought on people talking about land. I brought on people that were specific on mobile home investing, people who were specialty in Section 8 investing. That's another one another niche. Section 8 is another niche that we didn't talk about. I met people who were buying auction properties for dirt cheap out there in St. Louis at that time when real estate was super dirt low, out there in the St. Louis area. And they literally had like crackheads working on, a lot of the easier stuff and turn around. They were buying the property, living in the property, fixing up the property while they lived in it. And it took them 30 days to completely rehab a property out and then turn around and flip it for crazy amounts of money. So there's a lot of things that can be done within real estate. You just gotta be a part of, do things like come to these classes, go in the chat, ask questions, network with people that you can within the Well Squad. That's already a good network right there. And then they have all these apps now like Meetup, where you can go to like meet with groups that are people that are specific within real estate. It's going to be lenders, it's going to be lawyers, it's going to be investors, it's going to be hard money people, it's going to be, everyone that's kind of involved in the space you'll find there. And then you'll find people that are specialty in this niche, and then, you'll network and build your team up and all that good stuff. So, like I said, it's a lot of moving pieces. I still believe that there's always going to be money to make within real estate because people are always going to need somewhere to live, and then not everyone is doing everything that they need to do to own a house, and then also some people's dream is not to own a house, right? That's fine too. So there's always going to be money to be made within the real estate world. You just got to figure out what works best for you. Can you also send us the deed on property guys book that you mentioned earlier? I'm interested in learning about that. I don't know if it's still, let me see if I can even find it in my email. I can't remember his name, but me and Chris both, we were at his house when he was living with his brother and his two brothers and his cousins out there in Cali. And this is something that me and him both were going to get into. Let me see if I can find this guy. Some dude out of some guy out of Florida. I don't even know if he's still relevant or not. Let's see. Crazy finding old emails to old realtors. I found an email from 2016 where I was hitting up this realtor looking at a listing, but that's not what I'm looking for. Let me see if I could find it for you guys. I think Chris might have sent it to me. If I could find his email. Let me see. I'll try to find it and I'll try to find it and send it to you guys. Like I said, I don't even know. Maybe this is it. What year was that? 2016, I think. I don't know. I can't find it right now. It's somewhere in my email, but I'll find it for you guys and send it to you. I don't know if it's still relevant or not, but he was considered like the tax deed expert. This was back in 2015, 2016 when I bought his course and went through it. It was a lot of great information on the tax deed and tax lien world. This may be a little off topic, but do you see a crash in real estate in regards to rentals, investment properties due to the emerging Bitcoin income strategies such as MSTY? The thing is, people there, everything happens in cycles, right? The real estate market, the the stock market, they all have these cycles. Do I think that there's going to be a specific crash? I've been kind of saying the same thing for a long time. Not I don't think it's going to be the type of crash that a lot of people are thinking. When people think, they look at the stock market or the real estate crash back in 2008, it really only hit certain areas really hard. And so when people throw the crash around, I don't think it's going to happen as in people think that's going to happen. I think people uh for the most part, people are pretty resilient at a lot of things, and we adapt to a lot, and we put up with a lot with, as far as how much we're taxed and how much of our income we give up to a government that's in more debt than anything else. So, do I think that there's going to be a crash? Yeah, but that crash is going to be subjective. I don't think it's going to be to where people are going to go be able to find properties for dirt cheap. I think there's going to be certain areas that will take bigger hits than others. Like for instance, Florida just took a crazy big hit when, all the what was it, the tsunami, I don't know what it was that hit over there that hit a lot of the those properties, and then a lot of people saw a big dip in home values at that time. People were selling properties for crazy, but then again, they ran into the issue where insurance was sky high through the roof. So, people were getting, kind of better deals, but then they're also getting hit on the back end on paying crazy insurance rates and stuff like that. So, do I think there's going to be a crash as far as rates going down super cheap, home values going down super cheap? I don't think it's going to be the type of crash. I don't think it's going to be the type of crash that people think that it's going to be. Um, there's going to be cycles, there're going to be those big moments. 2008 was a good moment for investors to scoop in and get properties for pretty cheap in a good amount of areas. 2020 was a good time to scoop in. So it's like, there was about a 12-year gap. So, I see there being at least another 8 to 10 year gap before that type of crash might happen again. So maybe 2028 to 2032, sometime in that period, there might be something. But things like real estate are going to have to keep going up because they have to keep printing money. They have to keep expanding uh, the monetary base, right? They have to keep putting money into the economy, or else everything will crumble and everything will crash. And then at that point, real estate is going to be the last thing on people's minds. So, um, own hard assets, own things like real estate, own things like gold, own things like Bitcoin. You want to store your money in assets that are going to go up. So three things that have, continued to go up since they've been around. Gold has lasted true the longest. Real estate has been, holding pretty strong for as long as we can go back. And then now, Bitcoin from 2009, 2010 up until where we're at has been holding strong. So, um, yeah, that's my take on that. But real estate's always, people are gonna need somewhere to live no matter what. Whether, it doesn't matter what you're investing in, doesn't matter, if you're a Bitcoin maxi, if you're a gold maxi, if you're the best stock trader in the world, if you're the best house cleaner in the world, everyone's going to need somewhere to live, whether if it's renting or buying, right? So you're going to have potential to make it a, if you want to make real estate a way as a form of income, you're going to have plenty of options. And then, we see the rental side is not going anywhere. And no telling with with AI, what AI is going to do to the housing market and things like that when uh, more jobs get replaced. And you know, we'll see if we start to head into a price of tomorrow Jeff Booth type of scenario where deflation starts to happen. I don't see them allowing, them being the central banks. I don't see them allowing that to happen, even though we should be living in a deflationary world. But you know, Keynesian did a number on folks, and so we're climbing out of that hole that a lot of the people that are in the powers to actually make change all kind of have that Keynesian economics type of view. So um, with that being said, they got to keep that money printer on, and things like real estate will continue to keep going up. It's not that properties are getting harder to make or anything like that, or they're making all these crazy improvements. They just keep expanding the money supply. They literally keep printing money, and so when they do that, it has to get soaked up somewhere. So yeah. All right, you guys got any other questions for me before we wrap this up? Hopefully you guys were able to, take something away from this, learn how to get a property from auction. If you guys do end up going this route, please shoot me a message and let me know. Let me know how your journey is. Let me know if this is something that, you feel like you want to dive into full throttle and go all out. Let me know. Or if you have any questions that you think of later, maybe that I didn't cover or that you want me to go a little bit deeper into, just shoot me a message in the Discord, or hit me up in the real estate chat. That way everyone can see. Or we have a lot of good experts that are Wealth Squad members that have great real estate backgrounds and are investors in other states and things like that that like to chime in and help as well. So um, we have our own network within Wealth Squad. So try to use it as best as you can. We have realtors, we have lenders, we have active investors, we have people that are just starting out, and we have some people that have 10 plus years of experience under their belt. We have lawyers in here. We have a lot. So I appreciate all of you guys taking the time out of your day to attend this class. And like I said, hopefully you guys were able to take something away from this. And that's really all I got. Like I said, we're already in May. Every time I do these classes, I just feel like we're either in a new year or we're about to be in the middle of the year. But whatever it is that you guys want in life, you just got to get after it. You know what I'm saying? It's that sounds very, cliche, and you hear all the people saying it, but really whatever you give your attention to is what you're going to end up getting. You know what I'm saying? So it's like, if real estate is truly what you want to make your living off of and to fund your lifestyle, how much time are you truly putting into this, right? Do you live and breathe this? Are you constantly, are you putting in, 8 to 10 hour days on building your craft with this? Or is this something that you're just trying to do on the side and you think that you're about to get rich quick? Because that's not the case, right? With anything that you're trying to do, whether it be real estate, stock market, starting your own business, doing a side hustle, uh, whatever the case may be, you're gonna get out what you put into it. And it's like when you go all in and you can truly go to sleep every night and tell yourself that, hey, I gave it my all for the day. You can only do so much in a day. So it's like, don't burn yourself out, but definitely, cut a lot of the distractions, and there's always something more that you can learn. And especially even if it's just one specific niche that we're talking about real estate, so I'll stay on it. So even if it's just real estate that you want to do, whatever the case may be, you have to learn more on the lending side, right? And finding people to finance these deals for you, using OPM, using other people's money. If you're going to be using the bank's money, you got to do things like get your credit in order. You want to get your debt to income ratios down very low. You want to decrease your debts. You want to find ways to increase your income. You want to be networking. You want to, you know, emerge yourself in this space, right? There's always going to be classes and groups, and buy books and watch podcasts and get out there and get your feet wet and your hands dirty. It's like, you're whatever life that you want ain't gonna just come magically appear to you at your door. You can't just sit behind your computer or sit on your phone and think you about to make some things happen. It's like you can make a lot happen, but you got to get out there. You got to put yourself out, and just put yourself out there. The worst people can say is no, And if they say no, well, then ask them. It's like, hey, if you're looking for someone to finance a deal for you, and you present to them everything that you have, all the info that you ran and all the work that you did, and they say, no, it's just not going to work. Well, ask them, well, what can I do to make it work? Well, I'm going to need this and I'm going to need that. And then you go do that and then you bring it back. So it's like the worst someone can tell you is no until they tell you yes, or they'll tell you no and let you know what it is that you need to come back for them to say yes. So, you know, just keep digging at it, keep getting away, keep building that momentum, right? Keep building that momentum and eventually something will break. And I tell people, on this journey, I've tried so many things. I've started many businesses. I can't even tell you guys the amount of things that I've tried, and a lot of late nights, early mornings, no sleep, a lot of burnouts, a lot of that. And on this journey, I would truly say the best recommendation I could give to any of you is find kind of that one thing that you want to do and just kind of really just go all in towards that. Because if you have multiple things going on and you're trying to start this business and you're trying to get into real estate, you're trying to figure out the stock market, you're trying to figure out how to do this, you're going to just be slacking in so many of those areas that you're really not going to be able to pull out your full potential. So I would say find that one thing that you really want to go all in with and go all in with it for at least a minimum a year, right? Be true to yourself, give it as much as you can for as long as you can until you absolutely know it's like, okay, I've exhausted everything that I could potentially exhaust in this area, and I just know it's not necessary for me. And it might not even be a financial aspect of things, because I've done a lot of things where I've made money. I've started these e-com businesses and I've made money, but it just didn't feel right for me. It didn't feel good. It didn't feel like I was doing something that I truly enjoyed doing, and I feel like I was just getting money from it. And it's like at some point, the money is not going to be enough, right? I know that sounds crazy and that sounds wild, but a lot of you guys might even be able to already relate and know exactly what I'm talking about. You can't just do something for the dollar aspect, because you'll get burnt out a lot quicker versus if you're doing something that you're just genuinely interested in, and it's something that you're passionate about and it's something that you actually enjoy doing. Um, so things will go a lot better for you. So that's kind of a little piece of advice I have for any of you guys that care to take it. But find that one thing, go all in, give it at least a year or two before you decide to detour into something maybe a little bit different. All right. All right. I appreciate you guys, man. I really do. I enjoy these. I always enjoy these talks and helping you guys out and giving you guys the knowledge that I have. Like I said, I don't feel like I'm this super duper expert, but I got my feet wet enough to be able to pass on the baton to you guys, and then hopefully you guys can take everything that I've done and take it to your level to where you feel like you're taking it to the next level for you. So passing the baton off to one of you guys. So hopefully one of you guys get on here and make something happen from this. And I want to hear, any stories that you guys may have, good or bad. Everything is it's not gonna always work out good, but every loss is a lesson, and that is really a fact. But that's all I got for you guys. Like I said, we got hour 45 on here. You guys almost got me on here for 2 hours again. It was only supposed to be an hour, but like I said, I enjoy doing these. But that's all I got. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hit me up in the squad if you got any questions, and I'll catch you guys on Sunday or Monday. If you guys are around, come around for the Bitcoin weekly dose that I do, that I just started up, and just kind of give you guys some insight on what's going on in the Bitcoin world. All right. Enjoy your night, and I'll get with you guys soon.